Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Child Abuse Awareness with Darlene J. Clark. Be a part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. I'm saying this loud and clear because Facebook has been marking me and they need to stop. Okay. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to, we make sure to take that off the top of that. I want to say welcome to Child Abuse Awareness with Darlene J. Clark. We need to be a part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Shattered Innocence Revised is my third book available at Amazon in hardcover, Kindle, and softcover. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share. Remember to speak up against child abuse. Thanks for being here. Appreciate y'all. Please hit the bell icon to be notified when I have a show. Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and start that off. I always like to start with a Bible verse or two. Fathers, do not embitter your children, or they will become discouraged. We need to learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, and plead the case of the widow. I'm saying trigger warning. Hope everyone's having a good day today. Without further ado, let me start this. It's Child Marriages in the U.S. and Child Marriage Prevention Act of 2024. We got a lot to go over. Some things I might look at because I'm trying to find a certain thing what I had read earlier. It's shocking, some of the things. It says child marriages in the United States. Girls, not brides, is given accredited.org is given a credit to this. Child marriage is a complex issue. It is rooted in gender inequality and the belief that girls and women are inferior to boys and men. It is made worse by poverty, lack of education, harmful social norms and practices, and insecurity. Its drivers vary between communities and it looks different across and within regions and countries. It's not just in the United States, it's everywhere. Okay. I'm going to get on down further on down. Here's the social norms and practices. And some people say, well, that's just a norm with the church type of, but it's not right. You'll see some examples. Okay, so let me get off of this. I don't want to get too much into that one. Here is the Child Marriage Prevention Act of 2024. Child marriage is a significant problem in the United States that overwhelmingly affects underage girls who are married to adult men, often with dire consequences for their life outcomes, include physical, emotional, and sexual abuse, poverty, lower educational attainment, and compromised mental and physical health. Data shows that between 2000 and 2018, more than 300,000 minors under the age of 18 were married in the United States, most of whom were 16 or 17 years old. Some of these marriages included girls as young as 10 and girls who were married to men that were decades older. In addition, between the years 2007 and 2017, more than 8,500 marriage based visa petitions involved at least one minor were approved by the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, the majority of which involve U.S. citizen men seeking to bring minor girls from overseas as brides or fiancées. Whoa. While the United States has long worked to support efforts to end child marriage internationally, our federal government has failed to take meaningful steps to address this issue in our backyard. Of course not. Of course, they don't want to stop it. That's another way for them to continue legalizing and legally sexually exploiting our kids, okay? The Child Marriage Prevention Act of 2024 is groundbreaking federal legislation that represents the first concerted effort by the United States Congress to condemn and prevent child marriage domestically. The Child Marriage Prevention Act of 2024 sends a strong message to states across our country that they must end child marriage in short order and provides incentives for them to do so. Establishing a national commission to combat child marriage to study, evaluate, and report on eliminating child marriage in the United States, providing those states that have already ended child marriages with increased VAWA grant funding, establishing a competitive grant program for advocates in eligible states that create state based task forces to examine child marriage and make comprehensive policy recommendations to address the issue. These grants will provide critical support to local advocates and survivors that live and work in states that have not yet ended child marriage, supporting homegrown reform movements. Prohibiting child marriage from occurring on federally funded land or buildings or property owned by the federal government, such as military bases, and instructed the Attorney General to promulgate a model state statute that prohibits child marriage. View the full Children Marriage Prevention Act of 2024. I tried to hit it, but for some reason it's not loading up. We'll see next if it's there. Additional resources is a full bill text available at Congress.gov. Section by section summary of the bill provided by Senator Durbin's staff. So let's go close that one out. Yeah, see it tried to load. I tried to load it right here and it didn't load. So, and here is an endorsement form, which you can look up at docs.google.com. And here for Child Marriage Prevention Act, please sign below. This list will be shared with Senator Durbin's office and published on Tehran's public facing webpage about this bill. Bill text can be found here, and more background information about the legislation, including the list of currently endorsing organizations and individuals, can be found here as also. So it comes on down. What's my email address, the name, the organization name. For those not representing an organization, please put not available. Assign it on in your individual capacity. Please indicate here if you identify as a survivor. Do you have authority to endorse legislation on behalf of your organization? Okay. So that's another thing right there. Let's see. Sorry. And at first, Tennessee had a problem, but they fixed the solution, thank God, right? So GOP bill would eliminate age requirements for marriages in Tennessee. This was in 2022. A proposal making its way through the state legislature would establish, let me get this part off over here, a common law marriage between one man and one woman. Opponents of the bill, HB 233, said it would eliminate an age requirement and in some instances open the door for a cover up of child sexual abuse. Yeah, it would have. It would have, no doubt about that. The bill sponsor, Tom Leatherwood, said the law being considered would add a new marriage option for Tennesseans. So all this bill does is give an alternative form of marriage for these pastors and other individuals who have a conscientious objection to the current pathway to marriage in our law. Well, if it didn't have an age set for the common law, No, that ain't all it did. Yeah, it's got a loophole where they could end up saying, "Well, I'm married to this kid," right? But missing from the bill are age requirements, opening the door for possible child marriages. Something the bill sponsor acknowledged during a children and family affairs subcommittee. There's not an explicit age limit, Leatherwood said. Representative Mike Stewart for Nashville, who sits on the subcommittee the bill passed out of, said he doesn't understand the motivation. I don't think any normal person thinks we shouldn't have an age requirement for marriage. He added, it could open up the possibility to cover up child sexual abuse. That's true. It should not be there, as it's basically a get out of jail free card for people who are basically committing statutory rape. I mean, it's completely ridiculous. So that's another reason why this terrible bill should be eliminated. The Sexual Assault Center of Middle Tennessee released the following statement on November News 2. The Sexual Assault Center does not believe the age of consent for marriage should be any younger than it already is. It makes children more vulnerable to coercion and manipulation from predators, sexual and other. According to UNICEF, between 2000 and 2018, 300,000 girls and boys were married before 18 in the U.S. Under current Tennessee law, you can get married as young as age 17 with parental consent. The bill will be heard in the House Civil Justice Committee Wednesday. So now we're going to go to the fact check, okay? This is where it got corrected, okay? So it said an image shared on Facebook claims Tennessee Republican lawmakers are advancing a bill that would allow child marriage in the state. It said it's misleading. It said while the original bill lacked an age requirement, an amendment was later added to clarify the new marriage designation would only be available to adults. The bill was never intended to allow child marriage, according to its sponsors. So, fact check Republican Tennessee State Representative Tom Leatherwood recently introduced a bill that would recognize common law marriages in the state, according to the Associated Press. The new designation, however, would only be available for heterosexual couples, leading some to characterize the bill as anti-LGBTQ, the outlet reported. An image shared on Facebook claims the bill also has another objective. Tennessee Republicans are advancing to marry little kids bill that will allow them to marry children at any other age, of any age. Sorry. Why is this Republican Party trying to legalize pedophilia? The claim is misleading. While the bill did not have an age requirement when it was first introduced in March, an amendment was added April the 6th to clarify the common law marriage designation would only be available to heterosexual couples who have reached the age of majority, according to the Tennessean. The age of the majority in Tennessee is 18, the outlet reported. Leatherwood maintains the bill was never intended to open the door to child marriage. But, they would have ended up doing that. Y'all know that for sure. Altering or addressing age in marriage was never the intent of this bill, Leatherwood told the Tennessean. I think it's a better bill by putting that in there. Despite the addition of the amendment, numerous social media posts continue to characterize the proposed legislations as a means to legalize child marriage. They done fixed it. They done amended it. So drop it, people. It's been fixed, okay? Y'all want to just discredit, but it's been fixed. To you states over there like California that don't have a legal age, you can get married at whatever any age. Leatherwood has since moved the bill to summer study, effectively ending its chances of being passed in the current legislative session, according to WKRN. Whew. And it says child marriage is still legal in most of the U.S. Here's why. Loopholes in state and federal law allow minors to wed. That's what the thing is. It's loopholes. And this is written by Alexandra O'Connell Dominic. Give her credit. October 31st, 2023 at thehill.com. They're taping their mouth you know, advocates and child marriage survivors from the group Unchained at Last put on wedding gowns, veils, chains, and tape over their mouths as they gather on Boston Common before marching to the State House to call for an end to child marriages in Boston, September 22nd, 2021. Okay. About 300,000 children and teens are legally married in the U.S. between 2000 and 2018, according to data from Unchained at Last, a nonprofit that works to help women and girls enforce marriages. Laws prohibiting minors to marry has struggled to pass. Only 10 states have a law prohibiting people under 18 from marrying. Pushback to setting 18 as a minimum age for marriage comes from both conservative and progressive groups. You know what's the problem is? A lot of times you got these states that says you got to marry, you can like a legal age of 17, but we already just found that out where there's some loopholes that they're doing, and we might not know about, such as a judge might go ahead and let a minor marry, even without the adults, like the parents saying it's okay. They can use that loophole and go and the judge decide. Even if the parents say no, the judge could go ahead and say yes, this child can marry this person. So at age 14, Genevieve Meyer began spending time with a neighbor to get a break from her hectic home life. Her relationship with a neighbor, a 42-year-old divorced father of two, soon turned sexual. Meyer's mother eventually found out and she called the police. But she believed that Meyer, wow, ruined this man's life by seducing him, according to Meyer. And the neighbor and Meyer's mother ultimately decided that he and the team would get married so that any criminal charges will be dropped. See, it's not the girl's fault. You're saying it's the daughter's fault. She's 14 and she seduces adult male. What's wrong with the picture here, y'all? What's wrong with the picture? In return, Meyer's mother would get a cut from the profits of the neighbor's tree trimming business. Oh, so you sold your child, basically. You sold your child. That right there is a product of sex trafficking. You sold your child. Meyer, now 43, was shocked when her mother told her about the deal. My immediate response was 14-year-olds don't get married, Meyer said, but I was wrong. Thousands of children and teens are legally wed in the United States each year. Almost 300,000 minors got married between 2000 and 2018, according to one 2021 study by Unchained at Last, a nonprofit that helps women and girls get out of forced marriages. Now, there's some that's been boys too, don't get me wrong. One of my earlier things, which I'm having trouble finding it online now, as far as the evidence supporting it, but Tennessee had let this 20-something-year-old woman marry an 11-year-old boy years ago. Oh boy, girls are far more likely than boys to be married before the age of 18. Out of all the minors that married between 2000 and 2018, 86% were girls and 14% were boys. Per the nonprofit, most of those girls married adult men. This is happening every day, said Freddie Reese, founder of Unchained at Last. And some of the reasons are because these outdated, archaic, and dangerous laws that encourage this. Marriage before the age of 18 was legal in all 50 states until 2017. Since then, 10 states have passed legislation banning the practice. In 2018, Delaware passed legislation raising the minimum age to marry to 18, becoming the first state to ban child marriage. It was followed shortly by New Jersey, and since then, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Rhode Island, New York, Massachusetts, Vermont, Connecticut, and most recently Michigan have also raised the minimum age to legally wed to 18. More than half of the United States still allows 16 and 17-year-olds to get married with parental consent. However, according to Tahrir Justice Center, a nonprofit that works to protect women and girls facing gender based violence, On top of that, 10 states allow children younger than 16 to get married with judicial approval, according to the center, while 4 will drop the minimum age for marriage if a girl is pregnant. Oh boy. You hear that? So, if your child is younger than 16, a judicial, that's the judge, so they can go do that without the parent's consent. If a pedophile goes to the judge says, and the judge is a bad one, and they said, well, parents ain't got no choice, and the parents say, no, you're not going to marry my child, judge go ahead and marry him off because that pedophile. Oh boy. And 8 states, including California and Washington, have no age floor for marriage, according to the center. So no age floor, what you can marry an infant. No, that shouldn't be a laughing matter. There's no age. No age where they're looking, y'all. No age. How scary is that for our kids? Legal loopholes at the federal level allow for child marriage to continue as well. For example, there's no minimum age requirement to petition for a foreign spouse or fiance visa, according to the U.S. State Department. As a result, read that again. There's no minimum age requirement to petition for a foreign spouse or fiance visa. Seriously? According to the U.S. State Department? So you're going to let our people that's older or whatever bring a child over and marry them, even though if your state you can't marry unless you're 18 or something. But that's where they're going to loophole, bringing these young girls across and marrying them. Ooh, ay, 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 ay. And while some states have adopted laws to make it harder for minors to marry, passing those laws can be challenging. And Tennessee was asked to sign the certain bill that under, and they threw it out. Tennessee refused to do it, and I'm mad at Tennessee about that. I'm mad because they can end up using all these other little loopholes. The legislation banning child marriage has struggled in some states due to backlash from both conservative and progressive voices. Earlier this year, for instance, a bill that would have prohibited minors from getting married in West Virginia was rejected by Republicans in the state Senate. Some opponents of the bill argue that teen marriage was part of the West Virginia culture. Uh, and I bet it was more than just Republicans. I believe it's other stuff. Don't just say it's them, it's other people too. You want to go win a war. West Virginia Senator Mike Stewart was among those who voted against a bill this past spring. He said that his mother was married when she was 16, and 6 months later, I came along. I'm the luckiest guy in the world, according to the Associated Press. Well, Mike Stewart, um, you need gone. Sorry. Wyoming Republicans, meanwhile, pushed back against state legislation raising the minimum age of marriage to 16 because they said it can limit parental rights and religious freedom. In 2017, the New Jersey Governor Chris Christie similarly vetoed a bill banning marriage for anyone under 18 in the state because it would conflict with religious customs. Wow. There's some perceived threat to religious freedom, said Ann Warner, interim CEO and president of the International Center for Research on Women, set up efforts to bar minors from legally marrying. She pushed back again that perception, however, we are talking about human rights, and human rights are not antithetical to religious freedom, she argued. In California, in contrast, opposition to setting a minimum age for marriage has come from more progressive groups, including Planned Parenthood, the American Civil Liberties Union, and the Children's Law Center. Y'all protecting the kids? Are y'all kidding me? These groups have contended that imposing an age requirement for marriage could lead to rollbacks on constitutional and reproductive rights. Excuse me? In 2017, the ACLU wrote in a letter of opposition to California's bill banning child marriage that the legislation unnecessarily and unduly introduces on the fundamental rights of marriage with sufficient cause, according to PBS. Planned Parenthood affiliates of California spokesperson Jennifer Winnicott said in a statement to The Hill that the organization strongly supports protecting youth from abuse of all kinds and safeguarding their rights. You are such a liar. You are such a liar, California spokesperson Jennifer Winnicott. You are such a liar. Excuse me. Oh man, I call it out as I see it. You are such a liar. That strongly supports protecting youth from abuse of all kinds. That's not safeguarding our children from these predators, from these pedophiles. So stop with your lies, okay? Stop it. We have supported previous efforts to create safeguards against exploitation while working with authors to ensure those protections do not impede on the reproductive rights of minors. When they're minors, reproductive rights of minors, and their ability to decide what is best for them, their health, and their lives. Oh my word. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. It's going to be all right. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Warner pushed back against his argument as well, arguing that rather than being an exercise in young people's rights, marriages involving minors are being used as a guise for abuse and control of children. That's right. Minors need parental consent or judicial permission in order to get married. And many times, children's voices aren't being heard as they stand before a clerk of the court or county register to be wed, she said. They don't need to be. Do they have a job? Are they able to withstand a job? Do they have the know how on getting loans to be able to have the housing? Are they living on the streets? Are they, you need to think. And somebody said this is not a youth right that is being exercised enthusiastically by young people. A Casey Swegman, Director of Public Policy at Teherath Justice Center. This is a loophole in the law that is being used to exploit young people under the guise of marriage. Exactly. I like you, Casey Swegman. I like you. Thank you so much. This was a case for Meyer, who said her mother gave her consent by signing something that looked like a permission slip and handed it to the daughter's soon to be husband. Meyer and her former husband, who ultimately divorced when she was 22, got married in Jackson, Mississippi. Whoa. Okay, she was 14-year-old living in Mississippi, okay? And she got married. She doesn't remember signing the marriage certificate, but does have a copy of it. It does have my little child's signature on it, so I must have at some point, she said. So she was probably forced into it. Okay, so let me get past this one right here, too. So I want to get over here to this little PDF that we got right here. It says Child USA. 2023 report on child marriages in the United States, a national overview of child marriage data and law. This is Child USA, introduction and overview of child marriage. But I think we want to go to see, it's got the different states right here where you can look at. So it said the global rates of child marriage are high, while victims are predominantly female. A significant number are male. According to UNICEF, 12 million girls are married before their 18th birthday every year. Around the world, approximately 640 million women and girls alive today were married before they turned 18. For males, a study analyzing data from 82 countries found that about 1 in 30 boys is married as a child. UNICEF estimates that 115 million boys and men alive today were married before they turned 18. This brings the present day worldwide total number of child brides and grooms to about 755 million, 85% of whom are girls and 15% of whom are boys. Child USA considers child marriage to be a form of forced marriage as minors are legally incapable of providing consent. Child USA defines child marriage as a formal marriage or informal union where one or both parties is under the age of 18. So we go on further down here. Says the think tank for child protection. Based on the current rates, it would take another 300 years to fully eliminate child marriage. Various factors contribute to the high prevalence of child marriage across the globe. The most persistent drivers include gender inequality, poverty, social norms, and religious traditions, and national insecurity. Like I know there's two teachers at a school where I went to school with that ended up they had charges against them for messing with a student and impregnating. And one of them divorced his wife and married the person, so then that charge was dropped against that. And then another teacher a couple years ago, charges were dropped against him because they ended up getting married. Okay. This is so wrong for teachers to be allowed to marry our students and that to even be a factor. I looked up to one of the teachers at school and she said, at least he made it right. He divorced his wife, and had kids, and that made it okay that he ended up marrying that child that he impregnated. I'm like, how's that make it right? Seriously, how does it make it right? As the national insecurity, okay, particular, every tenfold increase in conflict deaths is associated with 7% rise in the prevalence of child marriage, while 10% deviation in the levels of rainfall due to climate change is associated with 1% increase in levels of child marriage. Okay, and they said additionally the COVID-19 pandemic significantly affected occurrences of child marriage worldwide, causing an additional 10 million girls to be at risk of child marriage in 2030. So, of course, with this PDF version of this child help, there's a lot more information in here as well. But we're going to go on down because we got a lot of different information to put out there. There's a prevalence of child marriages in the United States. I'm not going to go ahead and read over that. Child marriage is more a problem in the United States than most Americans know. It is a pervasive issue with devastating domestic consequences. Between 2000 and 2018, almost 300,000 children were married in the U.S. alone. Of those marriages, an estimated 30,000 to 60,000, or 10 to 20%, occurred at an age or spousal age difference that should have been considered a sex crime. A 2021 study analyzing marriage certificate data from all 50 states found that approximately 86% of these underage marriages involve girls and 14% involve boys. While the general public often assumes that child marriage is an issue that is limited to third world countries, the practice is widespread across the United States. Here is the negative consequences of child marriages. Y'all's wondering what some of them may be? Child marriage triggers severe adverse effects for its victims, their offspring, and society as a whole. The consequences of child marriage include slower economic and social development, increased risk of violence, serious health issues, and even death. Society bears the economic burden of these devastating outcomes. In many communities that practice child marriage, the risk of death spikes for child brides because there is an expectation that they will quickly produce offspring. What's it say for parenthood? Come on now. See, right here's the facts given to you, and yet you said given up their rights is would you're speaking up, but they got a risk of dying, being at an early age doing all this. In fact, the worldwide leading cause of death for girls between the ages of 15 and 19 are complications from pregnancy and childbirth. Tragically, girls aged 15 to 19 are twice as likely to die in childbirth as mothers aged 20 and older. Child mothers also face heightened risk of suffering serious health conditions such as obstetric fistula. a debilitating condition that can cause incontinence in the mother and the death of the baby within the first week of its life. Adolescent mothers are also more susceptible to eclampsia, and y'all know what that is. That's when it becomes detached from the umbilical cord, puerperal endometritis, and systemic infections. Mothers with eclampsia can experience seizures or coma. If untreated, endometritis has a fatality rate of 17% of mothers, and in a small number of cases can cause complications such as sepsis or necrotising and fasciitis. As for systemic infection, it is one of the top five causes of maternal deaths worldwide. Systemic infection after delivery poses an increased risk of postpartum depression and can negatively impact breastfeeding and the development of a bond between the mother and the baby. Excuse me. Moreover, sexually transmitted infections and diseases pose a significant threat to child brides. Many of the risk factors for contracting HIV occur at higher rates in child marriages than in adult marriages, such as early sexual onset, unsafe sex, age disparate relationships, low educational attainment, limited access to information and services, social isolation, and experience of intimate partner violence. In fact, child brides who are married under the age of 15 are almost 50% more likely to have experienced either physical or sexual intimate partner violence than girls who are married after they reach 18. Studies in the United States show that American victims of child marriage are acutely vulnerable to higher rates of psychiatric disorder as well as physical, emotional, and verbal abuse. And what's so sad about this? You're saying, well, she's married, she could go to an abuse shelter. No, she would not be able to. She's underage, and they do have an age bracket. They would not be able. They, and she's not even able to do the checkbook and all this other kind of stuff. There's a lot of stipulations. She could do this. She could get married. Oh yeah, okay, but she's not allowed to do this other banking and get credit and all this other kind of stuff. It's kind of weird. Health effects on the offspring of child brides. Life-threatening health effects also plague infants and children born out of child marriages. Stillbirths and newborn deaths are higher among offspring of child mothers than among offspring of mothers between the ages of 20 and 29. Additionally, teenage mothers have a higher risk of giving birth prematurely for the babies with a low birth rate. And it showed the facts right here. Okay, so we're going down, let's skipping over that so y'all know there's a lot of different health risk that is attending that. Okay, it's research shows that a child marriage had ended in 2015. The global economy could have saved 566 billion by 2030. In the United States, between 70% and 80% of marriages involving a child end in divorce. A child marriage followed by divorce can double the likelihood that child's mothers would descend into poverty. Consequently, in addition to being a dire social issue, child marriage is a profoundly economic issue carrying tremendous intergenerational and societal costs. Why are we letting this happen to our children, people? Why are we allowing this? Okay. All right. I just seen something that I had to get to right here. See that right there? No, y'all don't want to talk about that, but it's important too. The SDGs incorporated the primary aims of the CRC and the CEDAW and call for eliminating all harmful practices such as child, early, and forced marriage and female genital mutilation. This call to action is ongoing in 2014, 2016, 2018, and 2020. The UN General Assembly passed four separate resolutions calling for United Nations member states to strengthen and accelerate action to address child, early, and forced marriage. Despite international efforts to end child marriage, cultural and religious exemptions to child marriage laws facilitate its continuation. Many countries and U.S. states allow exemptions to minimum marital ages when there is parental consent, court authorization, or customary or religious laws that take precedence over national law. So we're going to go on down further down here. I want to show y'all child marriages laws in the United States. Okay, let me get on further down here to each state. State autonomy over the issue of child marriage means that the United States lacks national consensus regarding proper and effective child marriage laws. This decentralized system creates a legal framework in which certain states strongly protect against child marriage, while others maintain lax laws that facilitate the practice. See, there's legal loopholes right here to the right. There's to state child marriage laws, parental consent, judicial approval, which is sucks a lot worse because the parent, like I said, the parent can go like that and say, "You're not going to marry my child," but the judge can go ahead and say, "Well, she's getting married anyway. I give the authority to let your young child, 10, 11, 12-year old, to marry this 40-something-year-old man, 70-something-year-old man, whatever. So basically, they're going ahead, and I think that they should get arrested themselves when they approve that because you are letting the trafficking and exploitation of a minor continue. How dare you? How dare you? Parental consent and judicial approval. Two of the most pervasive exceptions to the marriage age floor are parental consent and judicial approval. The majority of states facilitate marriages for children aged 16 to 18 based on parental consent alone. Parental consent exceptions pose one of the greatest concerns with respect to forced marriages, since parental consent can so easily equal parental coercion. Yet consent by at least one parent is often enough to acquire a marriage license for a child. Even with parental consent alone, it's not enough to authorize a child marriage. It often drives the outcome in judicial approval processes instead of the minor's own wishes. Assigning judges the responsibility for approving adolescent marriages can indeed be problematic. In many states, judicial approval is required only in cases involving minors younger than 16 years old. While the judicial approval process in these cases may be quite rigorous, the fact that a judge is only involved for certain younger children weakens the state's minimum marriage age and laws as a whole. So, see, even though it says that we got the legal age of 17, somebody can take it to court and stuff like that, and the judge can go ahead and say, "Yeah, I'm going to allow this minor to go ahead and marry," right? That's what the problem is, the loophole. That's why I think it's like really 11 different states that sign a thing under no circumstances can anybody under the age of 18 get married, okay? For instance, if a state's age floor is codified at 18, but judicial scrutiny is only triggered for marriages involving 15-year-olds, then most marriages or 16 and 17-year-olds will be approved quite easily. Thus, the only age floor that is actually enforced is set at 15. Further, some states assign minor marriage petitions to judges in generalist courts who cannot be expected to be attuned to coercive control or other dynamics of family and intimate partner balance. This is because generalist judges often lack the experience, they lack the training, they lack the resources needed to conduct sufficiently diligent inquiries that are necessary to properly evaluate child marriage cases or detect forced marriages. Sometimes judges even treat pregnancy as proof that marriage will be in the child's best interest. Unfortunately, pregnancy in these cases often indicates that the child was abused by the intended spouse or is being forced into the marriage by their parents. So this rapist can continue raping your child legally. Hey there, it's good to see you. The Romeo Juliet reason is the correct approach, not a rule common sense, etc. Right. Legally, there their needs minimum consent. Right. The age, maybe 18 is better. Yeah, a lot of times they can't get a job and they're just, it's going to be hard to be able to take care of themselves. And if they try to if they're abused by anybody and they're married at the age of 16, they're not allowed to go to an abused women's shelter. That's so wrong, right? But you're allowed to go ahead and marry and he can abuse you and stuff. What are you going to do? Proof of age and residency requirements. Age floors can also be easily circumvented in states that lack proof of age requirements for marriage. Marriage license data shows that impermissibly young children have been married in states where they were not required to prove their age with official documents. In fact, only 22 states strictly require official proof of age for all marriage applicants. Wow. So you don't have to prove your age? Wow. Additionally, state laws that lack residency requirements allow individuals to sidestep their own state's strong age protections simply by crossing into a state law relaxed ones. In the absence of a national minimum marriage age, which could be constitutionally challenging, many states can issue a child of any age a marriage license as long as its own state law exceptions are met. As a result, state laws that, number one, set marriage age floors at 18 years old with no exceptions, and two, require all marriage license applicants to provide official proof of their age, regardless of how old they appear, will most effectively prevent child marriages in the United States. Child USA also hopes to remove judicial discretion entirely from marriage laws, so no child under the age of 18 is accidentally married in the United States. However, in those states where judicial discretion still exists for marriage approval, trauma informed judicial training is a necessary step to better educate judges about the negative and lifelong consequences of child marriage. Okay. There's a child marriage at a glance, so let's go down here. I want to see the state stuff right quick, okay? There's 50 states and U.S. territories ranking laws preventing child marriage, okay? Here's Alabama. Since 2000, Alabama has had the highest number of total child marriages in the nation and the eighth highest number of child marriages per capita. Between 2000 and 2018, Alabama sanctioned approximately 1,166 child marriages, including the marriage of a 14-year-old girl to a 74-year-old man. What do y'all think of that? Exactly. Look at that. You're right. I get to know, y'all get to know, discuss some of this age of consent. Right. Well, Alabama raised the minimum marriage age from 14 to 16 in 2003. Child marriages still account for more than 5% of all marriages in the state. As of 2003, a child under 16 cannot enter into a marriage under any circumstance. 16 and 17-year-old minors are permitted to marry in Alabama with the consent of a parent or guardian. However, Alabama marriage clerks do not always require official proof of age. Wow, so they can still go through that loophole and not proving their age and still marry somebody that's young, see? And clerks may also issue marriage licenses to minors from out of state. Wow. Since 2019, the requirement that marriage licenses be issued by probate judges has been abolished for parties of all ages. Prior to this date, a probate judge was at least normally involved in granting marriage licenses for the marriage of a minor to certify the consent of a minor's parents or guardians. Overall, on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is the worst and 5 is the best, Alabama ranks at number 2. In Alaska sets a minimum age of marriage at 14 with judicial approval. With judicial approval, oh man, Here we go again. We just discussed about that judicial approval. And permitted a child to marry at age 16 or 17 with parental consent. In 2022, Alaska removed a judge's ability to grant 14-year-old children marriage licenses by raising the minimum age to 16 as long as the judge determines the other party to the marriage is no more than 3 years older. The marriage is in the best interest of the minor and there is parental consent, or the parents are unreasonably withholding consent or unable to give consent for some other reason. However, judges approving these marriages are not required to have special knowledges of family law or juvenile matters. Really? Official proof of age is not always required. Huh? And clerks can approve marriages for out of state minors. Alternatively, minors above the age of 16 can marry if they are an active duty military. On a scale of 1 to 5, Alaska ranks at number 2. Still not happy. That's right. Calming down. Here's Arizona. Between 2000 and 2018, approximately 8,795 children were married in Arizona. Of those 8,795, approximately 76% of those marriages would have met the definition of sex crimes had the marital exception not been in place. By I'm getting tongue tied. By 2010, Arizona was among the states with the highest child marriage rates. Arizona updated its child marriage law in 2018, which now completely bans marriage for children under the age of 16. The law does permit 16 and 17-year-olds to marry, but only if they are emancipated or have parental consent. Arizona law also requires an age difference of no more than 3 years between the intended spouses if one party is a minor. Nevertheless, official proof of age and residency are not always required. On a scale of 1 to 5, Arizona ranks a 2. Yeah, so it's updating, so it's progressing some, yes. And here's in Arkansas between 2000 and 2018. Y'all pay attention to your states and y'all see where it ranks, okay? Between 2000 and 2018, approximately 8,458 children were married in Arkansas. In 2007, the minimum age requirements for marriage were 17 for males and 16 for females with parental consent. In April 2019, Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson signed into law a bill that banned marriage for persons under age 17 except for applicants who are at least 16 and pregnant. To qualify for the pregnancy exception, parties must provide proof of the pregnancy, official proof of age, and parental consent. A judge must then review the evidence and determine that the marriage is in the party's best interest. If the underage child has already given birth, the court may still authorize the marriage. Arkansas does not require official proof of age or residency for typical marriage applications. Furthermore, the state does not limit age differences between the marrying parties. In 2021, Arkansas amended the law to increase the pregnancy exception age requirement from 16 to 17. On a scale of 1 to 5, Arkansas ranks as a 2. Here's California. You're going to be shocked with California. Get ready for this. Are y'all ready? Still have the servitude or forced marriages prior to 2000. That's right. These are scary numbers. Now here's California. This is really scary now. Between 2000 and 2018, California realized the second highest number of child marriages in the country with 23,588. Most were aged 16 or 17 years old, but more than 9,000 marriages involved children under 16, including 1,233 children aged 14. 78 were aged 13, and 5 were 10 years old. Prior to 2018, a minor could marry with the consent of one parent and a judge following a review of the case that included interviews with the parties involved. thus effectively setting the minimum age for marriage at 0. Oh man, you see that? Wow. You can marry an infant. You can marry an infant right there in California. Wow. Oh man, you see it right there. That's effectively setting the minimum age for marriage at 0. It says it right here. In 2018, California State Senator Jerry Hill sponsored a bill aiming at prohibiting marriage for all minors. The legislation passed and went into effect January 1st, 2019. But the law still allows any person under the age of 18 to marry with a court order with the consent of only one parent. So if you got a parent that says, okay, you got a sicko of a parent that said, okay, marry my whatever. And like my mom had sold my sister Savannah to a cop in Florida, and she was underage, about 9 year old. And so if she lived in California, would have been forced to marry her. To obtain the court order, both parties must undergo interviews with family court services and a judge, and in some cases, attend premarital counseling. You can't do that with an infant. The court is also required to consider whether there's evidence of coercion or undue influence on the minor. Nevertheless, California law permits children to marry as young as 0 and does not require to eliminate underage marriage without exception. But the bill was watered down to approval of underage marriage with a court order and ultimately died in committee on a scale of 1 to 5. California ranks at number 1, which is the worst. Wow, 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 wow. In Colorado, between 2000 and 2018, approximately 5,380 children were married in Colorado. Prior to 2019, Colorado law did not have a marriage age floor. Colorado's law was revised in 2019 to set a marriage age floor of 16 and to oblige 16 and 17-year-olds to procure judicial approval prior to being issued a marriage certificate. The judge ruling on marriages involving minors must preside in juvenile court and is required to consider the underage party's wishes, best interests, and ability to manage his or her own affairs and responsibilities of marriage. In all cases involving minors, courts must appoint an independent guardian ad litem to investigate and report on the relationship. All persons applying for marriage licenses in Colorado must provide official proof of their age. On a scale of 1 to 5, Colorado ranks a 4. Thank you, Colorado. That's a little bit better. Connecticut. Between 2000 and 2020, approximately 1,246 children were married in Connecticut. In 2002, child marriage was permitted for those ages 16 to 18 with parental consent for under 16 with judicial approval. Oh boy. In 2007, a bill went into effect that placed the legal age of marriage at 18. However, minors 16 and 17 can still be married with parental consent and the authorization of a probate judge located in the district where the minor resides. In 2023, lawmakers passed HB 6569, raising the marriage age to 18 without exception. All right, so this is one of the states I'm talking about. But evidently, there's some problems still right here. See, the new law became effective July 1st, 2023. Connecticut is one of several states with an unwaivably residency requirement, but it still does not require official proof of age. Okay, so that's why it's ranked 3 because you don't have to show prove your age. So guess what? Some people's going to be underage still in there and getting married because they're not. You need to change that and ask for age. So in Delaware, between 2000 and 2018, 219 children were married in Delaware. Prior to 2018, Delaware did not have an age floor for marriage, and children of any age could marry with judicial approval. Wow. In June 2018, Delaware successfully banned child marriage without exception, becoming the first state to do so in the United States. However, Delaware does not require all applicants to provide official proof of their age prior to obtaining a marriage license. Well, it's well and good that you got the law, okay? It's child marriages is banned without exception, but you're making exceptions by letting them slip up underneath the thing, okay? I'm I'm upset with you, Delaware. Florida. Between 2000 and 2018, 17,274 children were married in Florida. Prior to 2018, Florida law did not set a minimum age for marriage. Florida instituted a prohibition against marriage for all children under the age of 17 in March 2018. The law permits 17-year-olds to marry with parental consent as long as the age difference between the intended spouses is 2 years or less. While the law does not require parties to provide official proof of age or residency, it still resulted in lowering the total number of child marriages in the state. Between July and December 2017, there were 125 child marriages. And between that same time period in 2018, after the change in law, there were 48 child marriages. On a scale of 1 to 5, Florida ranks as a 3 because they're not checking. What good are these laws if they're not institution and making sure the age is right? Between 2000 and 2020, approximately 10,195 children were married in Georgia. Prior to 2019, the minimum marriage age was 16, and minors aged 16 to 17 could marry with parental consent. However, the age limitation did not apply if the female minor supplied proof of pregnancy. In March 2019, the Georgia State Senate unanimously raised the state's marriage age floor to 17 by passing a law that only permits emancipated 17-year-olds to marry with a court order. Further, the law mandates the older party to the marriage be no more than 4 years the child's senior, and all parties are required to submit official proof of their age. Thank you, Georgia, but for some reason you're a 4, not a 5. Additionally, the parties must separately undergo premarital education and present the judge with a certification of completion. If a minor is seeking emancipation in order to marry, a judge may only approve the emancipation after considering the minor's best interests, including whether the minor is being compelled to marry against her will, if there is evidence the minor was a victim of statutory rape by the intended spouse, and whether the intended spouse has a criminal history. There's a mandatory 15-day waiting period between the granting of the emancipation order and the marriage license. On a scale of 1 to 5, Georgia ranks a 4. Yeah, privacy. That's right. Yeah, sort your laws. That's right. You got the laws, and why don't you implement them? Ain't that right? Cash. In Hawaii, between 2000 and 2020, approximately 819 children were married in Hawaii. Prior to 2018, there was no set minimum age of marriage in Hawaii. In 2018, Hawaii amended its law to prohibit children under 15 from entering into marriage under any circumstances. 16-year-olds may marry if they attain parental consent, while 15-year-olds may marry if they attain both parental consent and approval of the family court. Hawaii only requires that marriage applicants provide official proof of age if a party appears to any age to be under the age of 18. Several bills to end or limit child marriage died at the end of 2020 and 2021 legislative sessions during the COVID pandemic. Currently, there is a bill pending in the state legislature, SB 46, HB 206, to raise the marriage age to 18 without exception on a scale of 1 to 5. Hawaii ranks 2 because they're still not approving of that bill. Tennessee was given the option to join the others with that bill, and they denied it. I am so disgruntled with you people. You are right. They need more action too in Thailand, Cambodia, and the Philippines. You are right. Here's Idaho. Between 2000 and 2018, Idaho did not enforce a marriage age floor and bore the second highest per capita rate of child marriage in the nation. Of the approximately 5,160 child marriages during the period, 83% to 87% of those marriages would have met the state's definition of sex crimes had marital exceptions not been in place. In 2020, Idaho lawmakers passed a bill that permits minors aged 16 to 18 to marry if there's less than the 3 year age difference between the minor and the intended spouse. Additionally, all minors are required to obtain parental consent, and both parties must provide official proof of age before the marriage can be approved. The proof of age requirement only applies to minor marriage applicants. On a scale of 1 to 5, Idaho ranks a 2. Just a 2. That's not good. Illinois, between 2000 and 2016, approximately 7,370 children were married in Illinois. Illinois has not amended its marriage laws in decades, thus permitting children 16 and older to marry with consent from both parents or with judicial consent. Judges approving minor marriages must consider the party's best interests, which cannot be established by pregnancy alone. The law requires all marriage applicants to present satisfactory proof of age before they can obtain a marriage license. Four bills seeking to end child marriage died in the legislature in 2022. A similar bill, HB 1252, is awaiting action in the House Rules Committee. If passed, it would increase the minimum marriage age to 18 without exception and require official proof of identification. On a scale of 1 to 5, Illinois ranks a 4. Between 2000 and 2004 and 2010 and 2018, approximately 3,533 children were married in Indiana. Prior to 2020, 15 was the minimum marriage age in Indiana. In July 2020, the law was amended such that a person in Indiana must be 18 years old to marry, except for minors aged 16 or 17 who have been granted emancipation by the juvenile court. To receive a marriage license through emancipation, the minor party to the marriage must only be a maximum of 4 years younger than their intended spouse, and both parties are required to provide official proof of age with any criminal records. Okay. And the minor is required to demonstrate official proof of residency in the state. Moreover, the juvenile court is mandated to interview the minor to assess whether the marriage is free from force, fraud, or coercion, and it is the minor's best interest. There's a mandatory 15-day waiting period between the granting of emancipation and the marriage license. All applicants for a marriage license in Indiana must furnish proof of age, regardless of age. On a scale of 1 to 5, Indiana ranks as a 4. Iowa ranks as a 2. It shows between 2000 and 2018, 1,356 children were married in Iowa. Children in Iowa may be married as young as 16 with parental consent and court approval. Judges can override a lack of parental consent if they determine consent was unreasonably withheld. See, that's where the judges are going ahead and making, and the parents might say no, okay, and the judge might say, well, you don't know what's best for whatever, and maybe the parent does know what's best, but you're overreaching, you judge, just so that they can continue on with some of their predatory behavior. As a result, the law grants significant power to a judge who does not need to have specialized training in family law or juvenile matters. Wow. To decide whether the parties appear capable of assuming the responsibilities of marriage and whether the marriage serves the best interests of the child or children. Furthermore, official proof of age is not required at the time of marriage. In fact, marriages between parties later found to be under 18 remain valid, although voidable. To void such a marriage, the party that falsely represented their age represented a birth certificate before their 18th birthday. Notably, marriage exempts sex acts from the definition of several sexual offenses, including sexual abuse of a minor between the ages of 12 and 15. So on a scale of 1 to 5, I ranks it's just a 2. As I say, that's how they're getting away with going ahead and abusing our kids. Police forces are not capable of dealing with rich white male sexers, especially that part is under resourced and there is corruption. Yeah, there's a lot of corruptions going over. You're right. 100% Cash. In Kansas, between 2000 and 2018, approximately 3,552 children were married in Kansas. Until 2006, there were no legal minimum age for marriage in Kansas. Minors of any age could marry with parental consent or judicial approval. Wow. In 2006, the law was amended to set the minimum marriage age to 15. In Kansas, children as young as 15 can marry if a district court judge determines the marriage is in the child's best interest. Children aged 16 and 17 are permitted to marry with parental or judicial consent. In both cases, the judge does not need specialized training in family law or juvenile matters, and the parties are not required to submit official proof of their age. Further, marriage provides an exception to prosecution for multiple age based sexual offenses, including, let me read that again. Marriage provides an exception to prosecution for multiple age based sexual offenses, including rape of a child under 14. Marriage provides an exception to prosecution. Okay. A bill seeking to end all marriages before age 18 without exception is HB 2046. It's currently awaiting action in the House Federal and State Affairs Committee on a scale of 1 to 5. Kansas ranks a 2. Here's Kentucky. Right here. Between 2000 and 2018, Kentucky's rate of child marriages per capita ranked fourth highest in the nation. Prior to 2018, the law did not set a minimum age for marriage in Kentucky. One study, which examined 11,000 child marriages in Kentucky, let me go back up some, between 2000 and 2015, found that age variances as great as 13-year-old girl marrying a 33-year-old man and a 15-year-old girl married a 52-year-old man. In spring of 2018, Kentucky amended its laws pertaining to child marriage by passing Kentucky Senate Bill 48. Kentucky's marriage laws now ban marriage for children under the age of 17 and only allow 17-year-olds to marry with a court order issued by a family court or district court judge, provided the age difference between the parties is less than 4 years. A note, the law requires the parties to provide official proof of age and residency, parental consent, proof of high school completion or the equivalent. Got to have a GED or graduated, and any criminal records to the family court before a marriage license may be issued. The judge must also conduct an evidentiary hearing to determine whether the marriage is in the minor party's best interest. Besides 17-year-old applicants, all persons applying for a marriage license in Kentucky must furnish official proof of their age. Kentucky does not limit age differences between the individuals to be wed. On a scale of 1 to 5, Kentucky ranks a 4, which is pretty good. See what you got to say there. It is insane, ain't it? What is that's what does it benefit? Okay, I'm gonna read your question there, buddy. You put honest question. I had friends, couples who engaged sexually before 16, but none of them will want to marry. My question: why want marriage? Who does it benefit? What is the motive? Like some of them want to marry because the fact that they get somebody pregnant, and so or some of these like the 50-something-year-old man and the 15-year-old girl. That's just wrong to me. Louisiana. Between 2000 and 2016, approximately 5,003 children were married in Louisiana, and over 80% of those marriages were between young girls and adult men. Prior to 2019, there was no minimum marriage age in Louisiana, and marriage provided an exception to prosecution for several age based sex offenses. Okay, so, wow. In June 2019, Louisiana passed a bill to raise the marriage age to 16 without exception. Signed by the governor in June and effective in August 2019, the law now only permits 16 and 17-year-olds to marry if the minor's intended spouse is no more than 3 years their senior and the minor has attained both judicial and parental consent. Before authorizing a minor's marriage, the judge must consider several factors, including any evidence of human trafficking, any evidence of sexual assault, any evidence of domestic violence, any evidence of coercion, any evidence of duress, or any evidence of undue influence. If a judge finds such evidence, they are required to immediately report it to Child Protective Services and are prohibited from authorizing the marriage. All applicants, regardless of age, must submit official proof of their age. On a scale of 1 to 5, Louisiana ranks a 4. Wow, that's got a lot more information on theirs. And it, yeah, I know your point. You're right. Which of these are Mormon? Well, Utah is basically Mormon. I know that. I know there's a lot that's in Alabama. In Maine, between 2000 and 2020, approximately 818 children were married in Maine. Prior to 2019, there was no minimum marriage age in Maine, and marriage served as an exception to several age based sex offenses. In January 2019, the Maine legislature proposed an act to end child marriage, which prohibited children under age 16 from entering into marriage under any circumstances. In June 2019, both the State House and Senate voted to pass the bill into law, which went into effect on June 16, 2020. As of October 25th, 2023, Maine eliminated its provisions allowing 16-year-olds to marry and now only permits 17-year-olds to marry if they attain parental consent. Maine does not limit the age difference between the parties to be wed. In the absence of parents or legal guardians, a probate judge may grant consent, and the parties are not always required to present official proof of age or residency. Despite these loopholes, fewer than 4 out of every 1,000 children are married in the state of Maine, one of the lowest rates of child marriage in the nation. A bill seeking to end all marriage before age 18, LD 622, was defeated in the Senate in 2021. Nevertheless, on a scale of 1 to 5, Maine ranks a 3. Some of you know the point. Arkansas, Tennessee, Florida. All right. So Maryland, between 2000 and 2020, approximately 3,533 children were married in Maryland. Prior to 2022, minors aged 15 were permitted to marry if they could establish both that they were pregnant and had parental consent, or for 16 and 17-year-olds, either that they were pregnant or had parental consent to marry. Oh, sorry. Further, marriage provided a broad defense against prosecution for all age based sex offenses. In October 2022, a new law went into effect that raised Maryland's marriage age floor from 15 to 17. Now, 17-year-olds may marry only if they have consent from each living parent or guardian. Without parental consent, 17-year-olds must provide a certificate from a licensed physician. Well, I did away with my family, so if I wanted to get married at 17, I wouldn't have wanted to ask my birth mom. She didn't have custody of me. From a licensed physician, that a party to the marriage is pregnant or has given birth, as well as an order from the court granting the minor permission to marry. Additionally, the new law requires all marriage applicants to furnish official proof of age when obtaining a marriage license. An attorney must be appointed to each minor party, and there is a mandatory 15-day waiting period between authorization and issuing the marriage license. On a scale of 1 to 5, Maryland ranks a 4. Wow, Massachusetts is a number 5. This is the first number 5 we get to. Prior to 2022, there was a minimum marriage age in Massachusetts such that children as young as 12 years old could marry as long as they have parental consent and judicial approval. As a result, approximately 1,246 children were married between 2000 and 2016 in Massachusetts. On July the 28th, 2022, Massachusetts became the seventh state to ban child marriage. Its new law prohibits marriage for any person under the age of 18 without exception. The law now also requires that all parties provide official proof of age with the marriage applications. On a scale of 1 to 5, Massachusetts ranks as a 5. They got the law and they are adhering to it. They're saying, show us the proof that you are that age. Well done, well done. Michigan, prior to 2007, the law of Michigan did not specify a minimum marriage age. From 2007 until 2023, Michigan permitted 16 and 17-year-old children to enter into marriage with consent from one parent. While children under 16 could marry with consent from one parent and the approval of a probate judge, effectively setting the marriage age floor at 0. What? Michigan's marriage law underwent a major overhaul in 2023 and now requires all marriage applicants to be the age of 18 or older without exception and supply official proof of age. Woohoo! Approximately 5,426 children were married in Michigan between 2000 and 2021. But now Michigan ranks a 5. Whoa, way to go, Michigan. Woohoo! Minnesota. Prior to 2020, minors aged 16 and 17 could marry with parental consent and judicial approval. And marriage provided a broad defense to prosecution age-based sex crimes. Look at here, in Minnesota, it ranks a 5. All right, all right. It, and they do require official proof of age to apply for a marriage certificate. Way to go, Minnesota. Way to go. Woohoo! And it said effective August 2020, Minnesota became one of the few states that prohibit marriage for a person under the age of 18 without exception. Okay, looks like Mississippi's fixing to get into trouble. What y'all think? Between 2000 and 2018, approximately 5,360 children were married in Mississippi. The law of Mississippi exempts married parties from the definition of statutory rape, even when the child is under 14 years old. And marriage also provides a broad defense to other age based sex offenses. Oh my goodness, Mississippi, I am very disappointed in you. Mississippi attempted to amend its marriage laws in 2021, but the bill died in legislature. As a result, children are still permitted to marry in Mississippi. Indeed, Mississippi considers males who are at least 17 years old and females who are at least 15 years old as capable in law as contracted marriage. Prior to being issued a marriage license, these minors and all persons under the age of 21 must provide proof of parental consent. However, children under the age of 17 for males and 15 may also marry if they attain both parental and judicial consent. Wow. All persons in Mississippi must furnish official proof of their age prior to obtaining a marriage license. The other legal loopholes effectively lower the minimum age for marriage to 0 in Mississippi. So there's loopholes that they can get through that you can marry a little bit kid, 9-year old, 8-year old, whatever. On a scale of 1 to 5, Mississippi ranks a 1. Boo! Boo. That's horrible there. Wow. So, Missouri, between 2000 and 2018, over 8,000 minors were married in Missouri, approximately 85% of whom were young girls, making it the state with the third highest rate of child marriage. Prior to 2018, minors as young as 15 years old could get married as long as they had parental consent, while those younger than 15 years old could get married with judicial approval. Marriage also provided a sweeping defense to a number of age based sex offenses. Oh, in 2018, Missouri revised its law to raise the minimum marriage age to 16. Children aged 16 to 17 can enter marriage if they obtain parental consent. In Missouri, persons aged 21 or older are prohibited from marrying a child under the age of 18. All marriage license applicants in Missouri must provide official proof of age. On a scale of 1 to 5, Missouri ranks as a 4. There's Montana. That's another one that's a lot of Mormons live here. You know, that's where the Osmonds lived, I believe. I'm not sure whether it's Utah or Montana where. Between 2000 and 2019, approximately 483 children were married in Montana. Montana allows 16 and 17-year-old children to marry with parental consent. A judge may approve the marriage if the child does not have a parent capable of providing consent. Minors are also required to attend at least 2 sessions of premarital counseling prior to obtaining a marriage license. Additionally, a district court judge who does not need to have specialization in family or juvenile matters, oh man, must determine that the marriage is in the minor's best interest. Yet you don't have specialization in family and juvenile matters, and yet you're giving it over for the minor's best interest, and yet you don't specialize in that. What an oxymoron that is, right? Montana's law bans marriage for children under age of 16 without exception and requires all applicants, regardless of age, to furnish official proof of their age. I'm proud of y'all for that. A bill seeking to end child marriage without exception, HB 533, died at the end of 2019 legislative session. On a scale of 1 to 5, Montana ranks a 4. Boy, y'all keep knocking them down because y'all want some of these legal loopholes to go back, don't you? In Nebraska, between 2000 and 2019, approximately 1,283 children were married in Nebraska. Nebraska has not amended its marriage law in decades, but the state requires children to be at least 17 years old to marry. And even then, 17 and 18-year-olds may only marry after obtaining consent from at least one parent and submitting official proof of their age. Nebraska's age of majority for marriage is 19, and thus requires parental consent for 18-year-old marriage applicants as well. All applicants for marriage licenses, including persons over 18, must provide proof of their age to Nebraska. That's the oldest I've noticed to be 19 years old. What do y'all think of that? Look at that. Nebraska ranks as a 4. Nevada. Prior to 2019, Nevada law permitted 16 and 17-year-olds to marry with parental consent and those under the age of 16 to marry with parental consent and judicial approval, but no set minimum marriage age. In 2019, Nevada strengthened its marriage laws by prohibiting any person under the age of 17 from marrying in the state. Before being issued a marriage license, 17-year-olds must obtain both the consent of at least one parent and judicial approval. The judge reviewing the minor's application may only approve the marriage in extraordinary circumstances. If the minor is a resident of Nevada and after ensuring the marriage is in the minor's best interest. Still, Nevada has the highest rate of child marriage per capita in the nation. Wow. Between 2000 and 2018, over 17,400 child marriages occurred in the state. In Nevada, a person does not need to provide proof of age to obtain a marriage license if the applicant clearly appears over the age of 25. On a scale of 1 to 5, Nevada ranks as a 3. New Hampshire, prior to 2019, the minimum marriage age was set at age 13 for girls and age 14 for boys. Marriage also provided a defense to certain age-based sex offenses. New Hampshire amended its marriage laws in 2019 by prohibiting marriage for all persons under the age of 16. Additionally, the law renders any marriage contract involving a child under age 16 null and void. Children aged 16 and 17 must obtain consent from one parent, judicial approval, and submit official proof of age. The judge approving a marriage involving a minor must be from the family division and must determine by clear and convincing evidence that the marriage is in the minor party's best interest. Notably, a judge is required to deny a marriage application if sexual contact between the parties would constitute sexual assault under state law. However, there is no restriction as to the age difference between the parties. Aside from the minors, all marriage applicants in New Hampshire are required to provide proof of their age. Since lawmakers passed the amendment in 2018, 5 attempts have been made to end child marriages in New Hampshire, but all 5 bills were defeated. On a scale of 1 to 5, New Hampshire ranks a 4. Here's New Jersey between 2000 and 2018. Approximately 2,231 children were married in New Jersey. Prior to 2018, the state law contained no age floor. The law allowed 16 and 17-year-olds to marry with parental consent, while those younger could marry with judicial approval. In June 2018, New Jersey amended its marriage laws and became the second state in the nation after Delaware to ban marriage for children under the age of 18 without exception. However, like Delaware, New Jersey does not require all applicants to furnish official proof of age. See, what good is a law if y'all say without exception and yet you're not asking for proof of age? You would be ranked a 5 if you did that. Don't you want your state rankings to show that you are protecting the children? The laws are well and good, but if you're not going by it, not good. Oh no, New Mexico is ranked as a 1. So it's to see what the problem is here. Between 2000 and 2018, New Mexico realized the 11th the highest rate of child marriages per capita in the U.S. Currently, New Mexico law does not articulate a minimum marriage age, meaning that a child of any age may be married if they meet certain requirements. 16 to 17-year-olds are permitted to marry if they are emancipated or have parental consent. Minors under age 16 may also marry if their parent requests a marriage or if the minor is pregnant, as long as they have authorization from the Children's or Family Court Division. Wow. Persons applying for marriage license in New Mexico are not required to provide official proof of age. In 2023, the state Senate proposed SB 295, which would have raised the minimum marriage age to 18 without exception and made marriage contracts voidable by any party under the age of 19. That bill died in committee. So you telling me that it's still got you can any child of any age can marry as long as the children's or the let's say minors under age 16 may also marry if the parents request a marriage or if the minor is pregnant as long as they have authorization. Excuse me, what's wrong with y'all people? Y'all get a resounding boo. Between 2000 and 2010 in New York, approximately 3,850 children were married in New York before 2017. Children aged 16 to 17 were permitted to marry if they had parental consent. Children aged 14 and 15 were also permitted to marry with parental consent and judicial approval. New York had changed, y'all. They went ahead. You cannot marry under the age of 18 without exception and requires that all marriage applicants provide official proof of their age. It ranks 5. Give them a clap. Woohoo! Good going. Good going. Woohoo. North Carolina. Oh boy, they got a 2 between 2000 and 2019. An estimated 9,749 marriage license applications involving minors were submitted to North Carolina, approximately 93% of which were for a marriage between a minor and an adult. Wow. Prior to 2021, children aged 14 and 15 could seek a pregnancy exception where one of the parties to the marriage was pregnant or had already become a parent. In that case, a guardian ad litem would be appointed to evaluate the petition and assess whether the marriage was in the best interest of the child. 16 and 17-year-olds can marry with parental consent without the need for appointment of a guardian ad litem. North Carolina amended its marriage laws in 2021 to raise the minimum marriage age to 16 if the minor acquires parental or judicial consent. The law also added an age gap restriction. A person married a 16 or 17-year-old can only be a maximum of 4 years older than the minor. However, the state does not require parties to supply official proof of their age. So they get a 2 and you get a boo. So here's North Dakota. We're tagging right along, finding out what's there. Me and me, Mrs. were going to get married in Vegas, so we decided not to. Still have fun there, eh? In North Dakota, between 2000 and 2018, approximately 306. You had fun there, Cash, huh? Between 2000 and 2018, approximately 306 children were married in North Dakota. Of those marriages, approximately half occurred in violation of statutory rape laws. Wow. You see that right there? And those marriages, approximately half occurred in violation of statutory rape laws, and y'all permitted it. North Dakota allows children aged 16 and 17 to marry if they have written parental consent and provide official proof of age. The law does not permit marriages involving children below the age of 16 under any circumstance, which is good. All marriage applicants in North Dakota must furnish official proof of their age prior to obtaining a marriage license. On a scale of 1 to 5, North Dakota ranks as a 4. Ohio, it ranks a 4. It says right here, Ohio law required, that was 2000 to 2019, approximately 5,010 children were married in Ohio. Prior to 2019, Ohio law required females be 16 years old and males be 18 years old to marry. However, under the pregnancy exception, even younger children can marry with parental consent and judicial approval. So they're right there. So Ohio strengthened its marriage laws in 2019 by instituting a marriage age floor. The law now requires that a person be 18 years old or older to enter marriage, except for 17-year-olds who have obtained consent and emancipation from by order of the juvenile court. Juvenile court may only approve a marriage involving a 17-year-old if the other party to the marriage is no more than 4 years older. Moreover, the court must consider whether marriage and emancipation are in the minor's best interest and whether the intended marriage is free of force and coercion. Prior to attaining a marriage license, Ohio requires applicants to provide official proof of age and residency. An attorney must be appointed to the minor. There is a mandatory 14-day waiting period between the emancipation order and the marriage license. On a scale of 1 to 5, Ohio ranks a 4. Here's Oklahoma. Oh man, that's low rating. It's a 1. You see that? Between 2000 and 2018, Oklahoma recorded the fifth highest number of child marriages per capita in the U.S. Oklahoma has not amended its marriage laws in decades, and state law allows 17-year-olds to marry if they have parental consent or in the absence of parents or legal guardians, approval from a district court judge. Oklahoma also permits children 16 years old and younger to enter marriage if it is the authorized by the court and is either part of the settlement of the suit for seduction or paternity. What? Did you see that? Let's read that again. Oklahoma only permits children 16 years old and younger to enter marriage if it is authorized by the court and it is part of the settlement of a suit for seduction or paternity. Seriously? If it's a settlement for suit of seduction? Seriously? Or the minor female is pregnant or has already given birth to an illegitimate child? These loopholes effectively lower the minimum age to 0. Oh man, so an 8, 9, whatever. Remember that 5-year old that I showed recently that had a baby and 5 and 6 year olds and stuff? Oh my goodness. Oklahoma law requires applicants for marriage license to present official proof of age. Previous bills seeking to end child marriages failed in 2020 and 2022. On a scale of 1 to 5, Oklahoma ranks as a 1. Oh boy. Oregon, between 2000 and 2014, approximately 3,285 children were married in Oregon. Previous bills to end or limit child marriage died in the legislature in 2019 and 21. Presently, Oregon permits child marriage for 17-year-olds with parental consent. The law does not require that applicants provide official proof of age prior to being issued a marriage license. On a scale of 1 to 5, Oregon ranks a 3. So that might be why Pennsylvania ranks a 3. Prior to 2020, Pennsylvania law did not specify an age floor for marriage. This allowed 16 and 17-year-olds to marry with parental consent. For those under the age of 16, required judicial approval for little to no guidance for judges' decisions. In 2020, Pennsylvania amended its marriage laws to prohibit marriage for persons under the age of 18 with exception. When it did so, it became the third state in the nation to ban child marriage. Nevertheless, Pennsylvania does not require applicants to provide official proof of their age. Even though you got that law, here I was praising y'all and saying when I did the 11 states that had that law and stuff. And I'm sorry I praised y'all when y'all were not adhering to the law, though. Y'all's praise has gone down for me now. It says a 3. I would put y'all as a 1 when you don't do the law like you should. I'm going to give y'all a 1, not a 3. They're rating it a 3. I give y'all a 1. Rhode Island, I am proud of y'all. Yay, 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 yay. An estimated 176 were married in Rhode Island between 2000 and 2019. Of those with gender and spousal data were available, 88% were girls wed to adult men, an average of 4.1 years older. And so now they ended up on a scale of 1 to 5, Rhode Island ranks at 5 because it said in 2021, Rhode Island amended its law to become the fifth state in the nation to ban child marriage. Way to go. Under the new law, a person must be 18 years or older to obtain a marriage license in the state without exception. All applicants are required to show official proof of age. They're getting there. Woohoo. Get closer to Tennessee. Prior to 2019, the law in South Carolina permitted 16 to 17-year-olds to marry with parental consent. However, under the pregnancy exception, children under age 16 were permitted to marry if they become pregnant or gave birth. In 2019, South Carolina amended its marriage laws to prohibit children under the age of 16 from entering marriage without exception. Under the current law, 16 and 17-year-olds may marry if they have parental consent and furnish official proof of their age. Aside from minors, applicants are only required to provide proof of their age if they are between the ages of 18 and 25. What? However, a bill to end all marriage before the age of 18 without exception, SB 34, is currently awaiting action in South Carolina Senate Judiciary Committee. On a scale of 1 to 5, South Carolina ranks a 2. One of the only applicants between the ages of 18 and 25 supposed to give proof of their age. Nobody younger than that. That don't make sense to me. South Carolina, between 2000 and 2019, approximately 823 children were married in South Dakota. South Dakota has not amended its marriage laws in decades and currently allows 16 to 17-year-old children to enter marriage if they have consent with one parent and provide official proof of their age. All marriage applicants in South Dakota, not just minors, also required to furnish official proof of their age prior to attaining a marriage license. On a scale of 1 to 5, South Dakota ranks as a 4. I want to see if this is the one that's got that certain thing in it. If it don't. I still want to show this about what I've seen about Tennessee. Okay, so let's see if it's right here. Trying to see it right here. Approximately 9,882 children were married in Tennessee, making it the state with the sixth highest rate of child marriage per capita in the nation. Prior to 2018, the minimum age of marriage in Tennessee was 18. However, the law permitted children to be married at any age with parental consent and judicial approval. Tennessee strengthened its marriage laws in 2018 by prohibiting marriage for any person under the age of 17 without exception. 17-year-olds are permitted to marry if they have parental consent, provided the other party to the marriage is no more than 4 years older. Furthermore, each minor must receive rights and resources fact sheet. Minors and all others applying for a marriage license in Tennessee do not need to furnish official proof of their age. So Tennessee ranks as a 3 because guess what? You can still get married sooner because you're not really proven you are the age. And this is right here with the Texas law. In Texas, they are ranked a 4 because a bill seeking to end child marriage, HB 1590, died in 2021, and a similar bill, HB 924, died in the House Juvenile Justice and Family Issues Committee in 2023. It says Texas law requires all parties, regardless of age, to submit official proof of their age prior to attaining a marriage license, which that's why they get a 4 there, okay? And Utah, okay, here's Utah. Between 2000 and 2018, approximately 5,600 children were married in Utah, the seventh highest in the nation for number of child marriages per capita. Prior to 2019, the minimum marriage in the state of Utah was 15 with parental consent and judicial approval, while 16 and 17-year-olds could marry with parental consent alone. In 2019, Utah bolstered its marriage laws by prohibiting persons younger than 16 from getting married in the state. Additionally, the law provides that 16 and 17-year-olds may marry only after submitting official proof of age, receiving consent from one parent, and obtaining authorization from the juvenile court. In 2021, the state passed HB 406, which did not change the marriage age or existing loopholes, but implemented additional procedural safeguards. Prior to authorizing a marriage involving a minor, the judge must determine that the minor is entering the marriage voluntarily and that the marriage is in the minor's best interest. The judge must also require that the parties attend premarital counseling if available and is prohibited from authorizing a marriage if the age difference between the parties is more than 7 years. Aside from minors, Utah does not require its marriage applicants to provide official proof of their age. I thought Vermont right here in 2023, the Vermont legislature passes act to ban child marriage. Okay, I gotta shut that down. Okay, go right here. Okay. The act to ban child marriage, raising the marriage age to 18 without exception. However, Vermont still does not require a marriage applicant to provide official proof of age. So that's why they are a 3 and not a 5. If you would do your job, is what you got right here. Oh boy. And right here between, this is Virginia. Approximately 6,775 children were married in Virginia. So let's go. Virginia amended its marriage laws to prohibit marriage for persons under age 18, except for 16 and 17-year-olds who have been emancipated by a juvenile or domestic relations court order. For a judge to emancipate a minor based on a minor's intent to marry, the judge must determine that the minor is entering the marriage willingly. The marriage is in the minor's best interest, and the marriage will not endanger the minor. Virginia does not always require its marriage applicants to provide official proof of age. And then there's Washington. A 2023 bill seeking to raise the minimum marriage age to 18 without exception is currently awaiting action in the House Rules and Committee. On a scale of 1 to 5, Washington ranks as a 1. So 17-year-old children in Washington only need to acquire written consent from one parent. Additionally, marriage license applicants in Washington do not need to supply official proof of their age. The 3 prior bills to end or limit child marriage died in the legislature in 2018 and 2020. So here's West Virginia. It says West Virginia amended a law which now prohibits anyone under age 16 from marrying without exception. However, the law still allows children age 16 and 17 to marry without parental consent, provided that the age difference between the marriage applicants is 4 years or less. West Virginia does not require that all parties to a marriage application present official proof of their age prior to being issued a marriage license. On a scale of 1 to 5, West Virginia ranks a 4. Wisconsin, it ranks as a 4 because in the absence of any parent or guardian, the probate court may provide its consent to the marriage. All applicants for marriages license in Wisconsin are required to provide official proof of their age and residency in the state. That's like, okay, and there's Wyoming right here. I'm trying to get to the part. I cannot find it yet, and it really needs said, hey, Terry. Yeah, banned it. That's right. I don't know. Message deleted by Nightbot. I don't know what it did. Okay, Wyoming. Children aged 16 and 17 are still allowed to marry if they receive both judicial approval and parental consent. Additionally, parties do not need to provide official proof of age. On a scale of 1 to 5, Wyoming ranks as a 2. Because they go like this with the Wyoming legislature enacted an amendment that raised the minimum age to 16 without exception. Children aged 16 and 17 are still allowed to marry if they receive both judicial approval and parental consent. Ain't this all messed up, everybody? And I want to get to, and here's the District of Columbia. Has not amended its marriage laws in decades. Presently, children under the age of 16 are prohibited from entering marriage. 16 and 17-year-old children are only permitted to marry with parental consent. Marriage applicants do not need to furnish official proof of age before being issued a marriage license. On a scale of 1 to 5, DC ranks a 2. I'll show y'all some. I'm trying to get to this facts stats about what I had seen. Hopefully, I can find it in here, scanning through right quick. Okay, it said, let's see this U.S. child marriage facts and U.S. about 200,000 minors have married between 2000 and look at here. It says right here some extreme cases in Alabama were okay in 2010 in Idaho. Some extreme cases of child marriage in the U.S. are 2010 in Idaho, girl. In Alabama, a 10-year-old married men ages 24, 25, and 31, respectively. Look at that, y'all. 3 10-year-old girls. There were 10. There's 24-year-old man, 25-year-old, 31-year-old. The youngest boy to marry was 11-year-old, who married a 27-year-old woman in Tennessee. Yeah, hey, I got the proof here. I was trying to tell y'all earlier. I couldn't find the proof here. I found it. Here it is. The youngest boy to marry was 11-year-old, who married a 27-year-old woman in Tennessee in 2006. Oh, yeah, yeah. U.S. states that allow child marriages. Technically, child marriage is not legal in any U.S. state since the minimum marriage age in most states is 18, with the aforementioned exceptions having older ages under age marriage in the United States is not permitted unless there are exceptional circumstances, which we ours is 17, I thought, in Tennessee. Four states have banned underage marriages without exception: Minnesota, Delaware, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. As of July the 1st, 2019, 12 states have no minimum required parental consent and a judge's approval. These states are California, Idaho, Maine, Massachusetts, Michigan, Mississippi, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Rhode Island, Washington, West Virginia, Wyoming. Let me go up here to find out when this thing right here was written. So let's go up here. Is a child marriage laws by state in 2025. Okay. So that's what that's coming from. Isn't this six and all this, right? It said four states have banned underage marriages without exception: Minnesota, Delaware, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. As of July the 1st, 2019, 12 states have no minimum age when all exemptions are taken into account, such as requiring parental consent and a judge's approval. These states are California, Idaho, Maine, Massachusetts, Michigan, Mississippi, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Rhode Island, Washington, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Okay. That's what I wanted to show you about the three. I don't know why that's right there. That book right here. I don't know what. Child marriages map shows U.S. state with the most. So going down, a map has been released that shows U.S. states where the most child marriages have occurred. So let's see, when was this? We need to make sure to look at the date if it's got it. That's 2024. Okay, we're going down right here. We are in the red here. Isn't it sickening, y'all? This right here, you know what that means? No age. Yeah, that's what that meant. It's no age. So let me go back in. I clicked on the map, so I need to go back. And let me go back. Okay, let's see, get rid of that one. And here's the different ones. It's about the Virginia Governor Youngkin signed a law banning marriage under the age of 18 in Virginia without exception. In 2016, Virginia changed the law to set 18 as a minimum wage and 16 in special circumstances with judicial approval prior to them passing the law. See how this goes on and on? We all need to be, and Tennessee keeps doing away with the law. You know, there was this, they tried to get that law passed in Tennessee under 18, no exception. But no, Tennessee said no. Rhode Island's got it right here. See, Pennsylvania's got it. Some of these states, as we went over, has got it, but they're not enforcing it by checking on people's ages. Okay, here's the thing again of the map. So that's good. Let me get over here. This is child marriage ban. That is where it's child marriage. These right here, which pink right here, this is where it's been banned. Okay, you cannot marry a child. Look, Washington now has got child marriage ban. Woohoo! Minnesota, Michigan, Pennsylvania, New York, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Vermont, New York, and New Jersey. But you got to make sure to check the ages, people, so that y'all could keep it enforced, okay? Look at the blue. You see the blue right here? What's that say? No minimum married age. But it says the minimum married age is 16. That's that color, though. That's the youngest age is 16. But this is no minimum married age. That's California, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Mississippi. No minimum married age. Wow. This right here is the child youngest married 17, but here's right here it's 15. This is Kansas. Kansas is the only one where it's age 15. But the no minimum are the ones that's even more alarming. It's California, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Mississippi. Let's get the word out and let's protect our kids. So I wanted to look at this as well right here because it says Tennessee House Bill 2134, where as enacted revises, where's it at? I saw it, I had it a little bit ago, but I guess it changed to something else. I hate that when that happens. Okay. Okay. It also revises provisions governing the age at which a person may be issued a marriage license, creates a cause of action for forced marriage. That's what I've been trying to figure out what that exactly means, y'all. When I look at this Tennessee law, this was 2018, whatever, but it's like House Bill 2134 revises provisions governing the age at which a person may be issued a marriage license. I understand that, okay, but creates a cause of action for forced marriage. Okay, so I wonder more about that. We'll have to look into that more. Yeah, babies having babies. That's right. Yeah, I'm sorry that they got onto you for doing all caps. I don't mind having all caps, but not by got onto you for that, Carrie. I'm so sorry, but sometimes it's important because this is really sickening for anybody who wants thinks that it's okay. And I'm mad at Planned Parenthood that says, "Well, you're giving these young children are not having rights to be able to have kids." Excuse me, they're not asking to have kids that young. Babies having babies, excuse me. They're not asking to do that. That's being forced upon them. You're exploiting our kids over there. Our kids are being exploited everywhere you look. I'm from Tennessee. Well, I'm really from Alabama originally, but I was exploited and so by my own parents and everything. But I'm so glad that um, uh, I'm sorry my daddy died when he did. I would have forced him married him too because he said he was going to come and marry me, and he said the church would allow it once they know the truth. So I don't know how they would have allowed him marry me, but anyway, I guess he's not really my daddy for him to say that, right? But the church would allow it once they know the truth. So I might have been forced as a kid to be in his predicament. Who knows, right? I'm just so glad that it didn't work out where I was forced into that situation. Thank God. It's bad enough with trafficking and all. But these are legal ways where these adults are trafficking our children, exploiting our kids. These people, they can be beat and everything, and they cannot go into an abused woman's shelter. They don't have the help necessary that they need. And anyone that's following me tomorrow, I have my special guest is Kay Kaiser. It'll be at 6 p.m. tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Central. On Saturday, sometime, I will interview Charles Rogers again. So we're going to redo the case that we done prior. The people had trouble hearing him. So y'all keep it going and keep up the hope and be an inspiration to many. Speak up, speak out. We got to stop this nonsense on hurting our kids. Well, thank you all, and God bless you. Appreciate y'all.